Thank you.
There you go. So thank you for coming tonight. It's a great turnout. Something, we had the assessors and commissioners last night, and it went very, very well. But something I forgot, I thought of it later. Ballots are going out June 4th. So that's when the ballots are being mailed out. And you can make your choices. So tonight, Dave Harvey is going to be our moderator. He's going to be asking the questions. Amy Mitchell down here is our timekeeper, and Mike Brown is going to be helping her with that. In case she needs help all the time. Questions, myself and Michelle Miller, our county treasurer, we have reviewed the questions that have been turned in. We do have questions also from the party that were submitted. I try to compare to make sure we are not duplicating the questions. So we're reviewing all those. I think we pretty much have them all together now. And so Dave Harvey's going to do the moderating. He will explain the procedures to everybody. And let's go from there.
First of all, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you for attending, because this is where your vote counts the most. In other words, you get more bang for your buck voting right here in this election. I would like to thank all the candidates that are here. I would like to say that I know you're all professional people, and I know that you'll handle yourself professionally. I just expect it. For the audience, no heckling, no giggling, this type of thing. Basically, so everybody else can hear. This is really a closely contested race. There's a lot of candidates, and so we really need to get down to the nitty-gritty and let everybody listen to what's going on. And so, with that in mind, we'll get started. Now, what we've done so far, you saw them draw from the boot. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the order that we will go in to start out the first questions. The first question I'm going to ask is...
One second, Dave. We're going to do it.
May we stand up and make a statement?
One second.
They're opening statements.
Right.
We're going to do the opening statement before.
Oh, you want me to explain the whole process? Okay, gotcha. What we're going to do, first of all, you'll do an opening statement for 3 minutes. And that will start with number 1. And go right on down the line. Then we'll have questions that have been from the Republican Committee and from the audience here. And those will be asked to you. You'll have 2 minutes to respond.
Yes.
Pardon?
You're correct. 2
Yeah,
minutes.
2 minutes to respond is different from last time. 2 minutes to respond, and then we'll come back in the same order and do a 1 minute rebuttal, even though it's not a debate, we're calling it a rebuttal. And that's the order we'll go into. Then the next question will be asked first to the number 2 man. And we'll do the same thing. Then the next question will be asked first to the number 3 man. And then we'll just keep proceeding along those lines. Okay. Am I forgetting anything, Mike?
Pledge?
The pledge.
Pledge
I
of
did that last night. Ah, okay. The flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to. Everybody, I want to come up to the podium and speak, even your opening statement and even answering the questions. It'll give our timekeeper to go boom, 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 punch buttons, and it'll just save the audience from trying to look at who's speaking at the time. So, with that, number one, Tom, will you come and do your opening statement?
All right. My name is Tom McGraw, and I'm running for sheriff of Park County. I appreciate y'all coming out tonight. I appreciate the Republican committees having this debate out here for us tonight. About myself, I am a career law enforcement person. I spent 35 years working in law enforcement. I started out at age 19 years old in the state of Florida, working in the city of Fort Walton Beach. I started out as a patrol person, patrol officer. We were a very busy community. Working 9 years in patrol, I answered a lot of calls, a lot of burglary calls, robbery calls, going to murder scenes, domestic violence, working traffic investigations, traffic crashes. At a young age, at 19, I didn't know very much about life, but I learned very quickly that I had to do the right thing, and that's what I did. I had a lot of common sense, which I feel is extremely important for a deputy or any law enforcement person. I started out, after about 4 years, I was made a field training officer, and I was tasked to organize the whole program because we didn't have one. So after 4 years of experience, I was already starting to train other officers. After 5 years, I was promoted to a corporal, was in charge of the shifts. And then after 9 years, I was promoted to an investigator into a narcotics task force, where in 2 different times, I spent a total of 16 years working in narcotics. In the narcotics unit, we did hundreds of search warrants, hundreds of high-risk arrests. We worked cases from low-level cases, from street-level crack cocaine dealing, to large-scale marijuana investigations, a lot of indoor grows for marijuana, a lot of meth labs, a lot of cocaine deals. We worked from the local level all the way up to the federal level. I worked with prosecutors from the state and from the federal agencies, and I learned how to work a case from the beginning to the end. Then I went into working fraud unit for 2 years. Then I worked in homicide for 5 years. Worked homicide from the beginning to the end, coming up on the dead body to going to court and having that person convicted and sent away to prison. Then I finished my career in 3 years in public corruption. So 35 years of law enforcement. I have a lot of experience. My wife, she also retired from law enforcement after 33 years. It's been commented to me that I shouldn't talk about my wife's career in law enforcement. I'm totally astounded by that. I'm very proud of what my wife has accomplished in law enforcement. 33 years in law enforcement for her as a woman. It's very, very proud that she did that. My son is a graduate of Texas A&M. He's in the Navy Reserve. Right now he's up in class, as a matter of fact, in Norfolk. We're very proud of our son. We've been living out here now for going on 5 years come September. We enjoy the area. We love the area. We're very happy to be out here in Park County. Thank you.
And that sound that you heard that's the ending bell. You did perfect.
All right, thank you.
My name is Monty Gore, and I am running to be your sheriff. A little bit about me. I've lived in this community for 30 years. My kids go to school here. My wife is a director of the Park County Senior Coalition. And we love this community. I've been very active in this community, not just since running for sheriff, but my whole life. I was on the rec district board, eventually voted to president. And a little area over here with swing sets and stuff like that as a result of that. I was the president of my HOA, Foxtel Pine Homeowners Association, for several years and re-elected to that. I was also involved in building, promoting our shooting range out off of County Road 15. That was about a 10-year project. It took a lot longer than I thought it would be because we ended up having to get grant money to do that. And of course, you have to follow all the federal guidelines and regs and lead mitigation, so that was quite a process. As far as my law enforcement career, I started at the ripe old age of 21. I had worked my way up through the ranks. to undersheriff. I worked my way through the ranks to captain in Summit County. When I went to the Colorado Law Enforcement Training Academy in Golden, I graduated from that academy with a 4.0 GPA. I'm also a graduate of two different corrections academies. As a sheriff, you have to run a jail, you have to know what's going on. I'm a graduate of the U.S. Department of Justice National Institute of Corrections Leadership Academy. I went to basic SWAT school and advanced SWAT school. I have thousands and thousands of hours of law enforcement training. I'm also the only candidate that was invited to the FBI National Academy at Quantico. You have to be invited, or you have to be nominated to go to that academy. And typically less than 1% of law enforcement officers in the United States will ever be invited to go to Quantico. I took graduate level courses in some of the hardest police science courses available. And once again, FBI Academy, that's the best of the best. And I'm proud to say I graduated with a 4.0 GPA. I'm your neighbor. Once again, I've lived here for 30 years. I've experienced tragedy with you. I've experienced good times with you. This is my home. This is where my wife and I and our children choose to live. And I would very much appreciate your support for the June 26th primary. Thank you very much. My name is Monty Gore.
15 seconds. So are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Next is Steve. Come on up.
Well, good evening. I'm Steve Spodiak, and I've been out working hard to be your next sheriff. I'd like to tell you all, thank you very much for being here this evening. I'd like to thank the Republican Central Committee for all the efforts that they put into making this possible, and I'd also like to thank the other candidates for being here tonight. So, again, I'm Steve Spodiak. I'm running for sheriff here in Park County. I'm a Colorado native, and I'm actually your hometown guy. So I've been a part of the Park County community for 30 years. I'm a graduate of Platte Canyon High School over in Bailey. I went to Adams State University down in the San Luis Valley. There I earned a bachelor's degree in history and in sociology with an emphasis in criminology. My wife and I have chosen to raise our family here. Park County is our home. We love it here. We're involved in the community. Our boys go to school here, and it's important to me. I've been a driver's education instructor and coordinator. I've been a Cub Scout leader. I've been a Little League baseball coach, and I'm the president of Platte Canyon Little League. As for my law enforcement career, this is my 14th year in law enforcement. I've been a detention deputy, municipal police officer, a patrol deputy, a school resource officer, a SWAT operator, railroad police special agent, senior special agent, a police canine handler, and I'm currently a detective corporal and a SWAT team leader for the Park County Sheriff's Office. I believe that people are the most valuable asset to an organization. And as your sheriff, my top priority will be to retain quality people, because I believe quality people produce a quality product. I believe in communication. And as your sheriff, I will work to increase communication between the sheriff's office and the community, as well as within the sheriff's office and other emergency services. I also believe in accountability and holding people accountable for their actions. And I believe that concerns for the people of Park County are illegal marijuana and other illegal narcotics, mental health, and wildland fires. And as your sheriff, I will work hard to address those issues. Most importantly, I love this county, and I love the people of this county. And I see the potential for the Park County Sheriff's Office to be a progressive, top-notch law enforcement agency. And because of my enthusiasm, my love for this job, my energy, my character, my love for the people here, and my love for Park County, I'm the one to lead the Park County Sheriff's Office in that direction. So again, my name is Steve Spodiak, candidate for sheriff. I too would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay. Next we'll have our fourth sheriff candidate. That's Gary.
Good evening. Again, thank you everyone for showing up tonight. I really appreciate that. Thank you to the Republican Chair Committee as well. Again, my name is Gary Rhodes. Some of you I've met before. I was sergeant here at the State Patrol, left here in 2010. Just like the other gentleman stated, I've spent 18 years here in Park County. I'm married. I've got 3 adult children, all who have graduated from Pike Canyon School District, all who are currently completing their education. I've got a daughter working on her master's degree, and my other 2 children are working on their bachelor's. I started my law enforcement career in 1991. I started out as a Colorado State Trooper. I patrolled the Jefferson County and the Gilpin County areas of Colorado. I was the very first trooper, or one of the very first troopers to work up in Gilpin County, the gaming division area. In 2001, I was promoted to corporal, and that is what brought me to Park County. My wife and I raised our kids here, and I'm just like you folks. You know, this is my community. I care about our community. I want to do what's best. I want to make our community better. I do not have any ties with the Sheriff's Department at this time. As a state trooper, I was responsible for training all the troopers here in Park County until I was promoted to sergeant. I, as a state trooper, trained more troopers in the state of Colorado than any other trooper in the state. I taught at the academy. I taught at the Colorado Law Enforcement Training Academy that Monty talked about. I taught there from 1992 until 2010. Again, I trained more troopers than any other trooper in the state of Colorado. After I was promoted, I got very involved in the community here in Park County. I became a coach. Started my coaching in 2002. Very involved. I was here for the unfortunate incident that happened in 2006 there at Platte Canyon High School. I stayed very involved. I care about our kids. I think it's very important that we provide a safe community for our young adults. You know, they're the ones that are going to be taking care of us. In 2006, I was promoted to sergeant. As a sergeant for the State Patrol, I was in charge of the entire troop for the entire Park County. I was responsible for deploying our resources, deploying them where I thought we needed to concentrate our efforts on. The rumble strip that you see in on 285 from Fair Play to Bailey, I was responsible with working the CDOT in making that rumble strip. When I was sergeant, we reduced motor vehicle fatality accidents by 85%. That's huge. That's very huge. I'm currently employed with the Adams County Coroner's Office. I've covered over 3,000 deaths, from a simple hospice to a homicide. Hundreds of homicides that I've investigated. Again, very simple deaths to homicides, like Tom McGraw stated. I've led these investigations from the very beginning to the very end, to the prosecution. Again, my name is Gary Rhodes. I feel that I'm probably the most qualified candidate for sheriff, and again, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Fifth candidate will be John Ty.
Good evening. My name is John Ty. I've been in Park County for 22 years. I've been in law enforcement for 33 years. I started my law enforcement career back in a small reserve community, and then got hired on with Los Angeles Police Department. I've got a lot of my experience from Los Angeles. I got SWAT training. We went to Studio City and had the training there with our SWAT people. And so that's where I really started my career in law enforcement. Before that, I got a BA in criminal justice at Eastern Washington University. After going to Los Angeles Police Department, we decided to move to the city of Bellevue in the state of Washington. There I was an officer for 10 years, received a lot of my training there with them, actually moved up and was promoted to a detective there. I've investigated all types of crimes, homicides, person crimes, robberies, all those types of crimes that you need to know as a sheriff in Park County. I have been in Park County for 19 years as your deputy. I've been a corporal in Park County. The reason I say that is it's been an honor and privilege to serve the folks of Park County, all the people here. I started off in patrol, went to the school resource officer. I started the program at Platte Canyon High School there, and it's a marvelous job being able to teach kids, and it's a fun place to be. There's sometimes you have to enforce the law, but a lot of times you get to say hi to them there. And From there, I've been commissioner with Park County. And the commissioner, I think, is one of the biggest parts in life bringing to the plate as a sheriff here. It's an administrative experience. The ability to sit down and go through the budget and say, this is what we need, and this is what we need to go towards in that, within it. And to have the ability to do that, you really need that administrative experience. I've had that for 8 years. I'm back out on patrol, and I'm a corporal now, back in patrol and also at the schools. I want to talk about my family real quick before I run out of time. I've been married for 37 years. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you. And I have 3 children. They're all adults now. One, she works for the Department of Human Services. She works and writes policy for spinal injury patients. The other one is he just actually got out of the Coast Guard. He served our nation for 6 years. And then I have a 3rd son who's actually in the internet sales. Thank you so very much. And I'm a grandpa too. September last year. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready again? Okay. I'm going to start out with a question that probably the people of Hartsel really kind of takes to heart. Okay? Listen real carefully. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Park County is about 2,200 square miles of land, some very rural and some very highly populated. How can you manage such a large area in law enforcement without more resources that you have at the present time? Oh,
I guess
I will say this. Number 2, Lonnie, don't blame me for the question. This is from the Republican Committee.
Certainly, as citizens, as members of law enforcement, we do have some challenges ahead of us. And your sheriff, when elected, needs to be able to hit the ground running and work on some of these challenges. John, just a few minutes ago, said that his emphasis was on the importance of administrative experience. Folks, for 36 years I've been in law enforcement, and 24 of that has been as an administrator, with the rank of lieutenant and above. To answer the question directly, I have actually stopped by the county offices. I've secured copies of the budget. How are we going to get more resources? How are we going to get more vehicles? How are we going to get more when we have limited funding? One of the things that I can tell you right now is that the makeup of the Park County Sheriff's Office, it's a little top heavy. If elected as your sheriff, I'm willing to actually cut some of that top heaviness out. I think we can operate with a sheriff, an under sheriff, and right now with reduced numbers, a jail sergeant. With that, and with the, I've already stated that I will donate the statutory salary increase to help fund a new officer. With that, I think conservatively, without going to you for extra taxes, I can see 3 to 4 additional deputies from that salary savings. So that's what we need to do. We need to examine, we need to look for ways not to increase taxes necessarily for the public, but to work with what we have to get more. And I'm very good at that. Thank you very much.
Okay, I am going to ask if I need to repeat the question, or are you ready? Ready? Okay.
So again, I'm Steve Spodiak, and the question, Park County is about the size of the state of Delaware. Okay, it's over 2,200 square miles. And while the question said that we had some very densely populated areas, I don't necessarily agree with that. We have some maybe a little bit more populated areas than others. But I don't think that within Park County we have any areas to speak of, even within the towns of Fairplay and Alma that are incorporated where the population is really dense. That doesn't really address the question though. How are we going to do more with less? Or more with what we have, I think is really the question, because whoever is elected sheriff, we're going to have a new sheriff, their budget is going to be set when they take office for 2019. They're going to have to do what they can with the money that's available. Again, I said my priority is going to be to retain quality personnel. I think a lot of the problems that we see with trying to cover such a big area is that this agency has been, for as long as I can remember, along with other county offices, a revolving door. We can't keep people here. Now, typically the way our patrol division is set up, and that's what you folks are seeing out there, are our patrol deputies. There's typically 4 on to cover the entire county at a time. We may be able to increase that if we look at our peak hours for calls and arrange different scheduling for the deputies that we currently have. So that during peak call times, there are more deputies out on the street. When the call volume is low, there doesn't need to be as many deputies available. It would be ideally, I think, I would love to increase the amount of manpower, and that's something that I think should be looked at going forward and down the road. But initially, I don't see that as being a feasible option. So we need to restructure and rework what we have. Thank you.
Okay, number 4. Gary. Again, Gary Rhodes. Again, I was a supervisor for the State Patrol. As a supervisor, I was responsible for not only my troopers, but the surrounding areas. And many times I was responsible for 5 different areas, 5 different counties. And again, I was responsible for deploying the resources, scheduling their evaluations, their work plans. And if you that don't know, right now Park County is spending $140,000 in overtime for the deputies they do have. $140,000. I would think that $140,000 we could hire 2 more deputies and probably give everybody a pay raise. And it's been said before, we are a training ground for a lot of our deputies. They're here for 2 to 3 years, then they're gone. We're spending $60,000 approximately to train these deputies for other agencies because we can't retain them. Why can't we retain them? Well, it's pay, it's lack of promoting on merit, and we need to change that. And as I mentioned before, for every deputy, I think, there's a supervisor. We're very top heavy. I too have said that I would give that statutory raise back to the deputies. For you that don't know, the captain that had just left Park County, they did not replace him. They took that money and they divided it up among their command staff. That is not good morale for the deputies that are out there putting their life on the line every single day. They're the boots on the ground. They're the ones that's doing the job. We need to pay those guys more money to retain them. We need more officers. I'd like to rebuild our reserve program. There's a lot of retired law enforcement in Park County that would be very happily ready and available to assist these weekends. All these people coming up to camp during the spring and fall. We don't have a break anymore up here. We need to get the auxiliary program back going. We need to get the reserves. And we need to retain our deputies, make them happy, reward them for the work that they're doing. And again, look at the budget. A lot of room in the budget. Ammunition. $30,000 for ammunition we're spending. Taxpayers, we're all spending $30,000 in ammunition. We're paying our deputies $140 overtime. I choose to do something.
Thank you, Gary, for adhering to the time schedule. Okay, Park County is about 2,000 square miles of land, some very rural and some very heavily populated. I agree with you. How can you manage such an area as a law enforcement officer with the limited resources at hand?
Thank you. I'm probably the only one that comes into play with a plan to actually increase revenue for Park County Sheriff's Office. We need to increase it. We have 4 people on right now, 2 on this side, 2 on the other side. That's all we have within our county. So how do we get more officers? We've got to find a funding plan that will work. 1% sales tax 1 penny for every dollar that we spend in our county will go towards the ability to bring more officers in and keep them. It's a plan, actually, I think the fire departments are trying to grab right now, and they want 2%. Actually, the 1% we can show with the Land and Water Trust that $900,000 to the state, it looks like that we're going to bring in, is going to go actually to the county budget for the Land and Water Trust. That's how much a 1% sales tax can actually bring to this county for the deputies and for the sheriff's office. That would help recruiting, that would help actually being able to pay our deputies and keep them. It would keep also with the ability to keep our equipment up. I'm driving a car right now with 180,000 miles on it. And that, for emergency vehicles, a lot of miles for the miles that we put on in Park County. We need to change that. We need to change that at this point. Now, Gary said there was $30,000, and I'm not trying to defend the sheriff's office. $30,000 that was spent in ammo. I would say there's $30,000 spent in ammo and new guns. We got new guns last year. That's a piece of safety equipment that we have to have. Also, he said that we had $140,000 that we spent in overtime. Well, when you work in an organization that's sometimes down 4 to 5 people, yes, out of 20 people, we're down that many people. And that because of injury, because people aren't getting hired. We don't have any applications right now for the sheriff's office. So that's why we spent $140,000 in overtime, but we had all that vacancy savings also for the officers that didn't work. And I wish I could have more time to speak about that. Thank you.
Now, there's a 1-minute rebut.
No.
No.
Tommy's got 2 minutes. Tom gets 2 minutes.
You're right.
Okay.
We're a team.
All right, there we go. Well, with the resources that we have right now, we cannot patrol this county properly. I would like to see, I've said it from the beginning, I like to see having a 3rd deputy at each end of the county. Like it's been said, we have 2 in the south end, 2 in the north end. Well, one thing that we have to realize is the bulk of the population in Park County is in Bailey. And law enforcement, that is where you're going to put most of your people at. When you have the most population, you put more law enforcement up there. South end of the county has the huge land mass. We are a huge area down here. I'd like to see the reserve program built up again and the auxiliary program built up. I also think that in the summertime is when we have most of the problems down here, especially in the south end, with tourists coming up and using our beautiful county for recreation. One of the things that I think we need to do is the school resource officer. We have one right now, John Tye, doing a great job. But we need to have more school resource officers in these schools. And in the summertime, school's out. So we would have those positions that we could utilize out here working during the summertime, during the peak times. That's something that would be a benefit on both ends, because we need to get school resource officers in these schools, and then we can use them in the summertime to come out and help out in the heavy traffic times. Getting with the county commissioners, we have to get some more pay for the deputies. That all of the candidates are saying that is an absolute must that we have to do. And if we can get more pay, we can retain the people and they'll stay here longer. But we also have to make a little better use of our deputies. I've heard complaints about deputies sitting at the Brown Borough for 2 hours in the morning, sitting at the Crow Hill Cafe for 2 hours in the morning. We need to have those deputies out patrolling the neighborhoods, patrolling the county. I also like to see the zones that we have broken up into a little bit smaller zones to where we have a little bit better response time if we have something happening in Guffey or in Hartsel. Instead of coming from Fairplay, they're in this area over here on this side. So I think we can do it, but we need some help to get more people out here.
Okay, we'll go to the 1-minute rebuttal. And I'm going to start in the same order, or do we want to rotate them?
No, we need to
I
stay in
want
the
the
same
same
order.
order. Monty, so you'll be first.
Once again, there's a lot of things that we can do. When we go and look at the sheriff's office right now and the makeup, there's a lot of changes that need to be made. If we got rid of some of the top heaviness in that organization right now, seriously, without going to the people for a tax increase, we could get, I'm going to say 3 to 4 officers. Especially if, for those candidates, not accepting the the statutory raise, that'll cover about half the expense of another deputy. I don't know of any county commissioner that is going to refuse a sheriff. It goes in, if you go in there and say, I'll cover half this deputy's salary, can I get a deputy? Okay, they're going to agree with that. They know we need more officers as well. Anyway, I would appreciate your support. As an administrator, I know what we need to do, and I know how to do it, and I know how to get the resources everywhere. Thank you.
1 minute.
But I think some interesting things we're talking about up here. I don't know about you all, but I don't want to pay more taxes. And I don't think that you do either, most of you. So I don't foresee that as being an option as a fix for this problem right now. The salary increase that's going into effect, if you're going to apply that towards raises, it's $28,000, divide that by about 40 people. That's going to help, but it's not going to fix the problem. We're going to have to work with local government. We're going to have to work with the commissioners. We're going to have to work with the budget within the sheriff's office to reallocate funds that we already have to fix those problems. Now, as far as being able to patrol the county, like I said, we shift adjust, but it's going to start from the top down. You have to have somebody who's motivated, so that goes down throughout the ranks within the department. Somebody who wants their people to be out there, to be aggressive, to be addressing these problems, to be proactive. And that's why you need me. Thank you.
Gary?
A couple things. If you look at the budget, it's online, public record. $30,000 has been spent every year for the last 5 years. They're not buying guns every single year. They usually buy them every 5 years, but we're spending $30,000 on ammunition every single year. Going back to the corporals that are up here that are currently employed in the Sheriff's Department, you just heard deputies parked at the Brown Borough for 2 hours. Deputies parked on Crow Hill for 2 hours. This is happening, folks. This is happening. You got 2 supervisors here tonight that know about it, and they're not doing anything about it. Okay? Me as your sheriff will make sure our guys are working. I'll make sure they're proud of the job they're doing. They will lead. I will lead. I will lead by example. I'm a person that's going to be working the road. I will ride with these deputies. I'll get to know the deputies. I'll know what their problems are. I will find out. I will do everything in my power to find out what they need. And right now it's money. And again, we'll work with the commissioners. But again, I don't want taxes either. John said, fire departments want more money. Sheriff's department wants more money. Work with the budget with what we have before we look for any more tax increase.
Okay. John?
Thank you. Let's look at how much it costs for the deputy on the road. $34,000, almost $35,000 for the salary. How about the car? The car can be $35,000 to $40,000. What about the medical that we actually put on that? So it actually brings it up to $70,000 for that deputy. So we're looking at $110,000, and I'm just guessing at that. Well, I'd have to go back and look at the budget to make sure. So that's how much it costs for a deputy to be put on the road. That's where we're going to find that money. Is it going to be in the vacancy or the savings from one salary? Or is it going to be somewhere that we're going to have to look for that money? I think as a citizen, I want the people that are coming up and down this road here, that we invite in for our businesses, because we want our businesses supported in that they pay for some of the support that they get from us. I go to rollover RV or RTV accidents. I go to fights in the park. I do all that sort of thing. They need to also pay for what we have within our community. Thank you.
You know, in the sheriff's office right now, there are a lot of good men and women working there. There's no question about that. Steve and John are 2 prime examples of that. You know, it's just, we need a little bit better leadership, a little bit better fine-tuning to having everybody get out here and doing a little bit more work. And I think one of the main things that with the salary is you people are the ones that are going to help get the salary raise. If the sheriff's office is doing a great job and you all see that, then when it comes time to go to the county commissioners for a budget increase, you're going to be there with me to help me get a budget increase. If you don't want to do that, then we're going to suffer. We're not going to be able to do things that we want to do. But salary increase is absolutely important. And if I get the backing of the public to help me out, then we can do that. And if you're really strong about it, then we'll try and get some more bodies out here too to help out and do the same thing. But you are the ones that have to help me do that. The sheriff's office works for you, not the other way around. Thank you.
Okay, now this comes from the audience. As a sheriff, you are also the county fire marshal. What are your qualifications for this, or do you plan on getting any certification that relates to fire? Steve, you would be up first.
So this goes with something that I talked about in my opening statement, wildfires, okay? The sheriff is the fire marshal for the county. I'm actually involved in a training right now, today and tomorrow, that deals with the organization of large events. So while that's not specifically related to wildfires, I am working in that direction. However, I think that the sheriff's most important role is to let some of the guys that are in this room, this building that we're in, the people who are experts in fire, that's what they do, that's their job. I believe that the sheriff's role in a wildland fire is to provide them with the resources that they need. Work with the state, make sure that on a wildland fire, once the fire department has notified the sheriff, that we can get those resources going, that we can get them rolling. If it's a fire that's on public lands, like National Forest, BLM, the sheriff needs to be a catalyst for that. Help get resources to where they need to be, but let the firefighters do their job. I'm a cop, okay? I'm a deputy sheriff right now. I'm not a firefighter, and I realize that. But there are people all over this county, hundreds of fine men and women with our local fire districts that are experts in this field. And as the sheriff, they need to be allowed to do their job. They need to be supported in doing their job, and have the sheriff's office do law enforcement functions in related to wildfires that can assist them, whether that be evacuations of our communities, whether that be coordinating stock trailers to get people's animals out, to move their livestock if they're in danger. I was able to be a part of the wildland fire suppression last week with the fire outside of Harris Park. So I have a little bit of experience with that. But again, I'm not a firefighter. That's not my expertise. I would defer to those who are. Thank you.
Gary, I guess you would be a question. Okay.
So unfortunately, I, as a state trooper, was involved in most of the big forest fires on the Park County, Jefferson County side, Heyman Fire, Stapling Fire, Heyman Fire. I was involved with all of those. And again, as a law enforcement officer, I think our responsibility is evacuation. But before that, we just had a mock fire drill, I believe it was May 5th, in Berlin Ranch Center in Bailey. We need a pre-plan, folks. We need to have a plan, and we need to do that now. I mean, fire season's upon us. We need to have a plan like they did in Bailey. We need to start thinking about how we're going to get our animals out, how we're going to evacuate. I too agree, this question has come up before, that who more than the fire chief is going to know what he needs. And I agree with Steve. You know, we need to let the fire chief do his job, delegate his people. Who is going to know better than him? I have some fire experience. I got nothing like the fire chief has. We need to rely on our fire chiefs. We need to let them do their job. Again, but I think it starts with planning. If we don't have a plan now, and again, not sparsely populated like we have in Bailey, but you people are just as important as people in Bailey. We need to have a plan. How are you going to get your cattle out? How are we going to get you folks out? Is there more than one way? Do we need to, build a bridge to get you out of there? Is there only one way in, one way out? Again, we did that in Bailey. It worked very well. Evacuation. Our safety is most important. We need to get you out. And again, by pre-planning, by working together with our sheriff's department, by working together with the law enforcement, I think we can achieve that. Again, Harris Park Range, we just had a huge fire over there. I think we're going to have a long season of fires, folks. And again, we need to start planning now. Let's get a plan and let's keep everybody safe. Okay.
say both of the gentlemen before me spoke very well about the communications aspect. But a lot of times what I found with the fire departments too is that when we respond to complaints of fires or complaints of people burning and that, we don't get there on time, or we don't get there in the time that it takes for us to write them a ticket. Because a lot of times they're the people that they're outside the community that come into our community and they don't realize how dry we are on that. So our part, and I've seen a lot of frustrated fire chiefs in that would be is that we don't get there on time to write those tickets. And we don't get that part of that enforcement, because if you get the enforcement out, a lot of times that'll help force and stop those people coming in and making the fires and that. The other thing too that's been brought up is communications. I would say as a commissioner, I put together the communication system that we have now. Code Red is a system that was brought on while I was a commissioner. I was listening to our fire chiefs, and they wanted a good communication system in which we have the ability to call back and put people on it and make sure that they get the information out. That came from my administration. Also from my administration came with communications to the fire chiefs, and I listened to them, and I would listen to them as a sheriff, is that we changed our communications. We moved it outside the sheriff's office so everybody had the ability to be able to speak and understand and how to change the actual communications. And they had the ability to actually respond to what Hartsel Fire Department wanted, or Guffey Fire Department, or Fairplay Fire Department. That's one of those things that I have the ability to do was the communication aspect of it and change communications. Thank you.
One of the biggest problems that I see with the fires in Park County, as the sheriff, being the fire marshal, is a lot of people don't know that there's a fire ban on. People coming out of Denver, Colorado Springs, coming up here, when I drive down the road in front of the fire station, I see a small little sign that says fire ban. And if you got a vehicle passing one way, boom, you might not see it. So what I'd like to see is getting some more of those lighted signs at some of the major areas coming out of Colorado Springs and Denver, where we say on it, fire ban, $1,000 fine. That might wake some people up. Because one of the biggest issues is that people come up here camping and they light their fires and the wind blows up and boom, you've got a major fire. I'd like to see us doing more notification, more education to the public about having a fire ban. Another issue that I see, and I've been talking to some of the chiefs out here from the fire departments, is that when there's a countywide ban put on by the sheriff, that it gets enforced by the deputies with a $1,000 fine. If there is no countywide fire ban and the chief puts out a fire ban, unless it's changed in the last week or two, then he has no authority. There is nothing to cite a person having a campfire to stop him from doing it. So I'd like to make sure that if a fire chief in the area wants a fire ban, it's not a countywide fire ban going on, that at least that chief can have some teeth into it and write these people some citations for having a fire. Like I said, I don't know if that's changed or not, but we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. And so far as being the fire marshal as a sheriff, the fire chiefs out here are the experts. They've been to all the classes. They know how to put out fires. I'm here to assist them and give them whatever I can give them to help them out. I think that's our best thing to do, is listen to the advice from the experts and take care of the problem. Thanks.
By the way, that was Chris. Chris Kingo. He's our fire chief here, and he's the one that's let us use this building. So thank you.
Fugitive apprehension, school shootings, SWAT operations, major wildland fires, snowstorm emergencies, managing large-scale events, search and rescue operations. I've been trained in all of these events. I've had to do tabletop training where experts came in and actually watched how you manage these events and graded you on how you perform. Not only have I had the training, I've been engaged in each and every one of these kinds of events. I've had the real life experience in managing these type of events. The sheriff has to work with, and in collaboration with, and in partnership with our fire districts. We have to work with our fire chiefs. We have to have meetings. We have to communicate. We have to, on a fire, we have to work together for the common good of all. Not only do we have to work with our district fire chiefs, but we have to have a good rapport with the state, and we have to have a good rapport with the feds. So that when we have a major fire, one of the things that we want to do is get resources on that fire ASAP. A small amount of resource on a small fire at the very beginning, cause and effect, it ceases to become a big fire. And all big fires start the same way. They start as small fires. So once again, collaboration, working with our fire districts, working with outside agencies to manage these. There's actually a term for that. It's called unified command. Not one person can do everything involved in a major wildland fire. That's why you work with your fire chiefs and your fire professionals. And that's why you seek and gain resources from the state defense as well. Thank you.
We got this, we're good.
This next session will be a 1-minute rebuttal. So we'll start again in the same order. Steve will be first.
So I think we got a little bit off topic here, but I liked a lot of the things that were brought up here about planning, training, fire evacuation plans, giving our fire district something with a little bit of teeth. But so let's say we modify our sheriff's fire bans to where it applies to the individual fire districts, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the ones that we have here in the county. So we could have a fire ban that is enforceable in a particular fire district. That's great, but you still have the issue with there's not enough deputies to patrol the whole county because it's so big. So I think there's some other things that we could do there that might be a little bit more effective, maybe some special deputy status type things. But the question initially also had to do with seeking out training. And I've had thousands of hours of law enforcement training in my career, and a lot of that I have sought out. And my career is shorter than the rest of the gentlemen up here because I'm younger. But I've sought out that training, and as your sheriff, I will continue to do so to better myself, to further my knowledge, to further my career. Thank you.
Gary?
One thing I'd like to touch on too is the code red. It was mentioned. I'd ask all of you update your code red information. I know over there during the Harris Park fire, there's a huge problem with that, getting the notifications out. So I'd ask all of you, make sure you have that code red on your cell phone, some way that the communications can get a hold of you and let you know of the fire. Again, I think it's all about working together, teamwork. Us working with the fire chiefs, getting out there, pre-planning with you folks. Again, we're getting into that season now that we're going to have a lot of people coming up from Denver. They're not going to see the signs, they're not going to care about the signs. They don't live here, we live here. Education. We need to get the reservists, we need to get the auxiliary officers back involved. We need to get that program going as soon as possible. Get those guys out there. Let them help us enforce these fire ban laws. Because right now, we don't have the manpower to do it. They already told you, get 2 on this side, 2 on that side. Now we got the campus coming up. We've got to get some more people. And, again, let's plan now before it's too late.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. As each one of us come up, the candidates come up, I keep hearing this theme, and that theme is not enough manpower. How are we going to get that manpower so that we're out there and we're able to enforce the laws that we need to enforce when it comes to the fire bans? We need to improve the sheriff's office. I think a few tweaks, a little bit of this and that with we'll maybe be able to squeeze out 1 or 2 more deputies, maybe. But on a county this size, we need to actually have more deputies that are out there that are able to look and be proactive when we have a fire ban situation. I would just ask that you look into that and really go ahead and ask those questions. The other thing too is how many candidates here have been on fires? I've been, I think, 10 maybe, if I can think of them all. And so I understand the evacuations and how to actually work with the fire chiefs. Thank you very much.
One of the most important things on being the fire marshal as a sheriff is trying to prevent these fires. And one of the major things that the public can do is fire mitigation. Myself and John Ty, we went to a seminar up in Bailey here last month from the Black Forest fire that happened over on the other side of Colorado Springs. And there was probably 135, 145 people there. But there's nobody from the sheriff's office there. The sheriff is the fire marshal. He should have been there, or he should have had someone of his representatives there to listen to the people and talk to the people about things that can be done. But one of the important things that I learned from that seminar was fire mitigation. You know, clearing your property to where you don't have the chance that a fire will get to your house. But you have to have your neighbors have to get involved in that too. So fire mitigation is one of the best ways to prevent the wildfires, and observation, knowing what's going on in your neighborhood. And when you see people doing something with starting a fire and there's an obvious fire ban, calling it in. Let's get the sheriff's office out there to take care of that. Thank you.
Aye. 1 minute.
Folks, you deserve an experienced leader who can hit the ground running as your sheriff. Fire mitigation is a good idea. And most of the fire districts within Park County actually go to HOA meetings and teach fire mitigation. They teach about moving flammable material away from your homes. And I'm sure many of you have actually had fire personnel come out and teach this and talk about it at your HOA meetings. One of the important things that we need to do as an agency and as a community is we have to put teeth into that fire ban. During the Springer fire outside of Lake George, officers found a guy in the midst of smoke with lit tiki lamps all around his camper. Okay? Everybody that has been charged has been visitors that come up into our backyard, and we need to get after these folks. Thank you. Okay, now for the third question.
Goes to fourth question, and Gary, you would go first. Fourth question, you went first.
Okay, this one. If there is a model law enforcement generally followed as a guideline for a county sheriff's department, what is your philosophy towards that model, or what is your own personal model that you would employ as guiding principles for you and your staff? Now, I will repeat that if anybody needs it at any time, because it's convoluted.
Can you read this one more time?
Yep, okay. If there is a model of law enforcement generally followed as a guideline for a county sheriff's department, what is your philosophy towards that model? Or what is your own personal model that you would employ as a guiding principles for you and for the staff?
Gary, you're up.
Again, as your sheriff, my